Test, 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 test. Hello there, YouTubers. It's the 19th of October, year 2025. That Australian Eastern Standard or sunlight saving time, Sydney time, and local or China Standard Time. So well, since I made my way back safe and sound in one piece to back to my grandma's flat, and it's been several days, and I took quite some time to catch my breath and also mass and accumulate and recover strength. I beg your pardon for my stuttering. But in fact, I planned, to schedule this live stream much earlier, but unfortunately, I had some other chores, some rather mundane chores to take care of, as trimming my beard, trimming and shaving, but quite inconveniently, the bag that that holds my scissors, it starts to to fall off, some some black dots, some black 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 not exactly trash, but some black dots just starts to fall off from the bag that contains my scissors I often use to trim and shave my beard, and I want them to fall off on my skin, so I have to wear some gloves to protect me from the falling dots, black dots, and and I'm still looking for an alternative and replacement, so that each time I can shave, I won't have to either wash my hands over and over, or having to wear a pair of gloves as a layer of protection for my skin. And blah blah blah, and hence, and then then my adopted old man slash one of my uncles came again and brought me some fruits, namely some 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 fruits, some some fruits. Last time he brought some some pears and pears and I beg your pardon. And so I had to for some time to to swallow, to chew, and and then I had to but unfortunately, yes, he he's helped sweep the floor and threw away some some rubbish. Yeah, so in any regards, in any event, life itself is just a freaking piece of freaking stinking shite and exhausting chore. It's just dreams constantly dreams away our energy and strength. But yes, since I made my way back from Hong Kong, so during this live stream, like I said, I would like to elaborate on some facts and something else I based on my observations and um, explorations slash a bit of in, investi, invested investigations into the city. Yeah, so I just like to share with you guys some thoughts about living in Hong Kong, and how I compare it with several major global cities such as Sydney, Singapore, Fukuoka, and Istanbul, blah blah blah, Shanghai, blah blah blah. Several major global cities I've been to, and blah 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 and shit. Yes, and something else about the coin vendors I bumped into during the the Hong Kong coins fair that took place not so long ago, in this year's mid October, and another one seemingly hosted and sponsored by the same by some highly similar, if not completely identical, hosts and all sponsors. You know, somewhere in central CBD in Hong Kong's central CBD in this year's the months after November. I'm sure that I'm due to my own shortage of funds and lack of more strength, I don't really plan to turn up to that one. Um, but instead, maybe next year I may or might schedule myself for another exploration or infiltration into the coin show again, say in year 2026, maybe likely in April or May, you know since I don't want my next travel to feature scorching heat and loads of sweats and exhaustion like um, my previous attempt. Though I reluctantly consider a success, though not a major success. Since I managed to breach the I managed to breach the prolonged period of um, clouds and fogs of pitch blackness, or the or a state of debilitation, by caused by severe um, grief and I beg your pardon, and blah blah blah. But at least I managed to, you know, to, you know, to, to put the show on the road and hit the road with my own feet and legs physically, and and thus fulfilling, honoring my, the promise I made to myself and to you guys back then. Um, so now about the coin show, I would like, first of all, I would like to, give you guys, some of my, absolutely honest and authentic opinions based on what I saw and my own, face-to-face interactions with those vendors, um, you know, sellers, at the, the location at the venue of the show. Well, honestly speaking, I didn't, really have a particularly pleasant experience there, and since the vast majority of the coins, namely the antique silver coins I spotted there were hugely, you know overpar- overpriced, and on top, I can't, 100 hundred, I can't 100% guarantee the you know the authenticity of of each and every coin I saw there. Although many of them have themselves placed and secured in the slots endorsed and alleged manufactured by by PCGS or NGC. The what is it called? The full name of PCGS. Please give me a sec. I just need to check Wikipedia since I don't tend to memorize names that efficiently nowadays. Yes, those slots allegedly are manufactured and endorsed by professional coin grading service or um, numismatics numismatics um, guaranteed company slash NGC. For those for the maybe for the vast majority of you guys, maybe you guys have never heard of them, but just like just please allow me to to give you guys a bit of a bit of brief brief and concise elaboration and explanation on what these two companies do and who they are. So yes, they are essentially speaking, they are currently the most authoritative and the most trustworthy of coin grading companies in the world. And for those who have little to zero knowledge of verifying the authentic authenticity of the coins you come across, you can pretty much safely trust them to grade and verify the coins you are about to buy and add to your personal range of collection, that sort of thing. Yeah. So And yes, there are also, there were, I spotted plenty of, raw coins, namely some raw antique silver coins there, which, I shall share, some of the pictures, some of the photos I took, on my buy me a coffee page, and some of them freely on my on my Flickr page, my Flickr album. Yeah. So yeah, for those who feel interested in knowing more, feel free to go to my Flickr album. Since I share those photos free. Well, at least some of them, you know um free of charge, with you guys. Yeah, but yeah, and many of the vendors there, they just, well, based on what I saw, they just kind of, had that sort of, um how should I maybe a bit of, condescending or patronizing attitude, that makes that made it that made it quite, hard for me, to exchange and communicate with them, on a, fairly, friendly and, close, if not, um intimate level, though not exactly, in the in the romantic sense, but I just, don't find them. I just, don't find them sufficiently friendly or approachable, to communicate with at a deeper level. Yeah, unlike, those coins vendors, well, back then, in the mainland, during my childhood. But yes, that traces, back, way back, more than, say, 20 years ago. So yeah, things have changed, quite vastly and profoundly, you can say so, I guess. But yeah, and as a result, I didn't, buy, any, new coins at this time of the show, but instead, I just, submitted two of my own, silver coins, you know as part of my, existing range of collection, to PCGS instead. And they told me that it can take, up to, say, 5 months for them to finish verifying and grading, my coins. Yeah, that's kind of, which, sounds quite frustrating and, you know exhausting, and on the other hand, a bit intimidating, to say the least. And and to make the matters worse, I'm pretty sure that I wrote down the wrong address for them, to ship back my coins to, once they finish verifying and grading them. So I'll have to, give them, a call back this coming Monday or Tuesday, or, blah blah blah. I just, I haven't received, a reply, and, an email reply from them yet, since several days ago. I sent them an email, asking them, to ship the coins back, to the replacement address. I provided them with. But yeah, but yeah, I haven't, since I haven't heard back from them yet, so I figured I will give them a call, see, see how it has been running, yeah, but yeah, but regardless, hello, man. If there's one thing I can say from observing today's world is that the concept of love has become more about material and less metaphysical. Yeah, absolutely. That's not, in particular, something new. I have known, I've known and acknowledged and understood such cold-hearted truth, since I was still a teenager. But I just, unfortunately, had to witness, all the, the process of the of the process of degrading, not degrading, degrading, or degeneration, all those and yeah, the degeneration and regression of the whole humanity. You know, hope all is well. Did you move to Hong Kong? Yes, I did. Relocate to Hong Kong, though quite briefly. But on the other hand, I can, I can still, travel back to Hong Kong whenever I wish, so long as I manage to save, more funds. And then, I just, before so doing, I just need to renew my Hong Kong ID, again, at a vending machine, in the mainland, before I make my way back, before I make my way, you know, well, back there. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for tuning in again, King. Yes, I'm still in one piece, safe and sound. Thanks. Yes, I guess thank God, and thanks to you guys. Moral support and cheering up. I won't say cheerleaders, but cheering up instead. Since you since addressing or calling someone cheerleader, or cheer, or doing something like cheerleading can sound um, quite either humiliating or insulting, or degenerating, to to say the least. And I would rather withhold from saying so to you guys, to you guys, whom I care about and respect. Um, yeah, and on the other hand, there is one more thing that about the coin show that I would like to point out, which is some of, well, I won't say some of, but there was one specific one particular vendor, namely a female one, possibly from pop possibly from, I don't know, maybe from Singapore, or from, I can pretty much tell that she, her ethnicity was either Chinese, or or Singaporean Chinese, or Malaysian Chinese or blah blah blah. But yes, she in particular, she, I don't quite like her, her intimidating and condescending attitude. Since she told me that you know right in front of my face that I couldn't take a photo, but it has been clearly you know clearly said by the event hosts that um every every you know every every participant that tuned in to the coin show or coin fair are free to take any photos or videos. So I just felt so tempted to just write, to just say so, right to her face, that you had no power uh, uh, over me at all. Who do you think you are? You are just a vendor. You're just a coins vendor, and I came here to to bring something that you can turn a profit in into, and had this kind of you know attitude that can drive your potential customers and profits away. So who do you think you are? I felt so tempted to say this right to her face. But eventually I didn't. I withheld from since I just it was a petty in or disrespect. So I just let it go. I just pretended that I didn't. I just pretended as if I didn't hear her. I didn't. I pretended as if I didn't hear her at all, like a fart caught in the in the ocean breeze near the beaches of near the beaches of Hong Kong. Yeah. So I just let it slide. I let it slide. But like I said, overall speaking, I don't find such coin show that how should I put it, that pleasing or enjoyable to attend. Since like I said, reason number one, you know they they've got that bit of you know condescending attitude, not exactly at the reception desk, but all the a lot of those vendors, they just give you a low bid on your items that you plan to sell to them to turn into a profit. And on the other hand, they just they they how should I put it? Yes, hugely they hugely overpriced their items, namely the silver coins. And but I guess I can't really lay all the blames on the vendors, since those vendors have to pay maybe a rather exorbitant amount of fee to the event hosts and organizers and sponsors, all three sorts of um you know parties, you know um ripping them off simultaneously. So, and also, if you take into extremely high cost of living in Hong Kong into account, then it should occurred to you as no surprise whatsoever that they hugely overpriced their goods and items placed for sale. But yeah, so maybe it so maybe I can pretty much come to a conclusion that maybe it wasn't such a good idea to travel to Hong Kong solely for the for the coins show or for the coins fair, but instead maybe to somewhere cheaper, somewhere far more cost effective, say Malaysia, or somewhere else, say Guangzhou or Shanghai. Those places, they are much cheaper, much cost effective, and the people there are much more friendly. But yeah, but since the one of my main goals, one of my goals, was that I challenged myself, to breach the 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 darkness of my own shitty situation, my own my grief, overwhelming grief after losing my man and my grandma within really more than 3 years consecutively. And also to breach to break I beg your pardon, to break free from that wicked woman's highly toxic influences and and indoctrination. So if you take that into account, I've at least certainly made some progress. Though a small step, yes, but I guess still a big step, small step, physically speaking, but guess still a big step, nevertheless in the right direction. Yeah, you know, that I can say probably. Yeah. But other than that, yeah. So that brings us, to the conclusion as to whether Hong Kong suits a digital nomad like me, like some of you guys out there who are currently watching or listening to this live stream. Um, Overall speaking, I don't really recommend that you visit or relocate to Hong Kong as a digital nomad, who kind of say want to who kind wanted who kind of want to I beg your pardon, to boycott the conventional nine to five grind. Yes, I don't really recommend that you relocate to Hong Kong. In the hopes that you start to enjoy life. Once more. But I beg your pardon. And for those that are kind of more or less introvert or quite shy, to communicate, to mingle with with other folks, in particular, brain dead NPCs, then I don't really recommend that you you know come to Hong Kong, since reason number one, yes, it costs quite a deal. It costs quite a deal, for you to live there. You know, if you are to live in a decent manner, um, that you don't share a room with someone else. Yes, and once your lifestyle requires or necessitates such living condition, then I don't really recommend that you visit or relocate to Hong Kong, since it costs even more dear, even and more than an arm and a leg for you to live in Hong Kong in a decent fashion than Sydney, than Melbourne, than though I haven't been to Melbourne physically myself yet, but it certainly costs a lot more than Sydney, than Shenzhen, the neighboring global city, right adjacent to to Hong Kong, and yes, it certainly costs a lot more to live in Hong Kong than in Tokyo and Fukuoka, than Osaka, and you know, also a lot more though I haven't been to Frankfurt or London, but yes, based on the data I've compiled and saw online, yes, is very much likely the most, at least one of the most one of the most expensive global cities throughout the whole planet. So I definitely, do not recommend that you relocate to Hong Kong. As a digital nomad or a MGTOW who want to boycott the system, the conventional nine to five grind. But well, unless you have tons of money, that you can spend and waste, then yes, be my guest. Do what you like, do whatever pleases you the most, and completely scratch what I just said about Hong Kong. But on the other hand, Hong Kong has great food. Though yes, even food there costs quite a deal, and even those even a cup cup ramen, and some sweets, some chocolate, like this, can cost up to $10, 10 or 15 or even 20 USD per piece, which weighs just around 80, 86 grams. Even this, which I just finished eating, not so long before I initiated this live filming session. Yeah, this small piece can cost you 10 USD, even 20 USD. So yeah, be particularly cautious with how you spend your money in Hong Kong if you are on a tight expenditure or a tight budget. Yeah. Yeah, but other than that, Yes, there's something else I would like to mention, which is the the I beg your pardon, the the booking services that I used for this time, which is trip .com, that I found them quite quite, how should I put it, quite, I won't say unfriendly, but quite hypocrite, quite um honest, since they failed to notice me that they required a pre-authorization, so they called a pre-authorization or pre um, deduction of funds, you know that they charged as you know as something like a bond whenever you book a hotel via their website. It feels as if they want to charge you twice for the same amount, and it gives they give me the impression that they assumed they assumed and presumed guilt among their clients, that you know their clients can show up late to the hotels they booked, which unfortunately for this time included me. So I just told them that, why did you assume or presume I would be late showing up to the hotel I booked? It just did not make sense at all, whatsoever. Unlike Golda, since during my during my previous um overseas trip, I booked my hotels with a Golda. So this quite unpleasant experience with trip .com made me has made me think twice, thrice using them ever again in the future. So I guess I will just with stick with a Golda. Though they even if they charge somewhat more than trip .com, but at least they don't trick their customers into you know into potentially paying more. They are just a bunch of you know I just can't find a nice way to put it. They are just a bunch of greedy and hypocritical cunts. What else can can I say about them? They're just twats. Yeah, I just don't know. I just can't find a nicer way to 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 give them an authentic review about their services. It's just freaking piece of twat. you know so yeah, but even if some of you guys out there who still would like to proceed with trip .com, still, yeah, be my guest, though, but know this, you will have to risk, the safety and security of your hard-earned money, you know by you know the full amount as support pre-authorization funds, um you know in a much similar fashion, to bonds or security um I beg your pardon. um Deposit, you basically have to risk having to pay twice of the full amount, you know, for your hotel or hotels. If you proceed with trip, well, dot, you know, no matter how attractive, they tend to advertise, their own rates for the hotels they li- listed on their website. Just bear this risk in mind. you know yeah, what else can I say? Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this filming session. uh your accent will be amazing to go to London. You got that posh accent. Well, thank you so much for saying so. Yeah, I feel so flattered. Yeah, and I certainly more or less crave some validations and compliments, since nobody else can give me such heartwarming compliment or validations like you guys. Since I pretty much have no one who can give me such validation in real life, since ever since the passing of my old man and my grandma. Bro, how much does a small apartment, one bedroom, cost in Hong Kong in dollars? 20 USD for chocolate. Oh my god. Yes, you heard that right. Yes, yes, that was the approximate amount that I give you. Yes, and the approximately maximum amount that a box of um almond chocolate can cost, while you buy them in Hong Kong. Yeah, but on the other hand, this item was not manufactured in Hong Kong or in mainland, or in the mainland locally. It was, well, based, according to the package and the label, apparently it's it was manufactured in Japan. So it's they imported these you know to Hong Kong. So yes, they certainly have some reasonable grounds to charge such an exorbitant amount and rip their customers off, using such ground as a shield. But nevertheless, since I chose to I personally chose to opt into their pricing system for several days. So yes, I take full responsibility for the price that I had to pay while I remained and traveled in Hong Kong. Yeah. So, and yes, and the same principle applies wherever else you go, wherever else you plan or choose to travel to. Um, yeah. So yeah. So in conclusion, Hong Kong overall costs quite considerably more than a lot of major global cities like Sydney, like London, like Frankfurt, like Istanbul, like Fukuoka and Shenzhen, Shanghai, blah blah blah. Um, so so think twice about relocating to Hong Kong unless you have something urgent, something terribly important to attend to locally. Say attend. Say for example, attending a meeting physically, face to face, or having to close a deal or several deals in Hong Kong face to face with your clients or customers, or having to make a purchase of some local goods or items or services. In that case, yes, I guess you still more or less have to make a trip to I beg your pardon to Hong Kong. But yes, meanwhile, you also consider some more far more alternatives like Macau, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou. These are the much cheaper, much cost effective alternative places or cities you can pay a visit or two to in person physically. Yes, I maybe next maybe I'm not making a 100% promise or a guarantee here, but maybe I might travel to Macau to do some simple sightseeing and just make another rather temporary temporary escape from this flat, aka from that wicked woman's poisonous range of influence for a while. Yes, so I definitely put paying Macau a visit on my to do list in the future. Though I can't 100% promise or guarantee that I will certainly travel to Macau anytime soon. But still, yes, we shall see. And on the other hand, it still largely depend on the amount of funds, on the amount of money I can make and save to fund such trip. But yeah, do bear this in mind. I will do my best to make my next mission of exodus adventure part of my reality, part of your guys so-called virtual reality as well. So rest assured, I will certainly prioritize on making it happen or die trying. So yeah, so I guess I have talked quite enough for this streaming session. Yes, and yes, I also still have some videos I filmed in Hong Kong. I am about to share with you guys. After I edit and polish some of them. And I shall share a large chunk of them in public here on YouTube. with you guys. Yeah. So other than that, definitely, bro. I appreciate your efforts in all that you do, especially especially your command over the English language. Well, of course, English is my first language. I spoke English pretty much, most of the time with my old man back then. But since now he is gone, so I pretty much only have you guys to speak English and other languages with. Yeah. So in case so do you guys have any more questions or doubts that you want to get clarified? And well, if not, then I shall conclude this live filming session. And feel free to post your questions or your comments or your feedback below this video, and I shall do my best to address them. So long as they don't come from bots or spammers or scammers or or those brain dead NPCs or trolls. Yeah. So in any regards, thank you very much for watching, for listening, and to this live stream as usual. So yeah, I have talked quite enough so far. So yeah, thank you again for tuning in, and in case God's still willing, hope to see you guys next time on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, blah blah blah. So yeah, if God's still willing, until next time, take care, stay out of trouble, and stay far from weak. Bye. Cheers.